Welcome back to Beach Channel Live. I'm Jason Kesser. We're talking about arts and culture in Miami. And I get to sit here with a comedian by the name of Katie Lyons.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming here. So it's Katie Lyons.
Yes.
Like, we don't want to, it's never Caitlin.
No.
And there's a middle name.
Yeah, Caitlin is too Bridgerton for me. I just need Katie Lyons. I actually talked to an agent about this once because I was like, should I go by Caitlin Lyons, Katie Lyons? And she was like, cut the Caitlin. Katie Lyons.
Caitlin Lyons.
Like, you're right.
There's something that happens to my mouth in the middle of that name, Caitlin Lyons. It's like a car accident, a beautiful elegant car accident of L's. What's the middle name?
Lillian.
There's more L's.
So many L's.
Caitlin Lillian Lyons?
Yeah, so my dad's side of the family is Irish. My mom's side of the family, my mom's Cuban. Of course, we live in Miami. So, like when my abuela tries to say my name, she'd be like, Kaylin. Like, so Katie works best.
What does your grandmother sound like saying your whole name, though?
Probably
Kaila
like-
Lili Alaya? It just sounds like she's yelling,
I don't
right?
think she's ever said my full name in
Yeah,
her
can you
life.
make her when you get home?
Her name is Lilia, though.
Oh, Lilia.
So the middle name is kind of, she's got that part.
So she has like a lot of practice.
She does. And like my sister's names are like Laura, Andrea, and there's Kaylin. Like it doesn't work.
The L family.
Yeah, for real.
Dude, that is broadcastable show right there. Kaila Lili Lyons. How long have you been a comedian for?
I've been doing stand-up for about two years. I've been acting for about 5 years, and then I've been doing like sketch comedy and improv for like 4 years. I started a year after I started acting.
How long do you think you have to do comedy before you can say you're a comedian?
I think you could say you're a comedian after your first show.
I think so too.
Yeah. I mean, just to get 5 minutes is so hard. Like if you're able to stand up on stage and tell jokes for 5 minutes, you are a comedian. Like,
Yeah.
period.
No,
And also
you've crossed over the threshold.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And if you do obviously sketch, or if you are a actor who does comedy, you're also a comedian. But stand-up comedian, first 5 minutes for sure.
Do you remember your first set?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about it?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I actually started doing comedy because I was taking improv classes at a place called Villain Theater in Little Haiti. And I just took their stand-up class because I had a few friends who were taking it. One of them's Tom Foolery. He does shows all over, like at the Improv and stuff. And I was like, I just want to hang out with these guys. Let me see if, it'll be fun. I'll get a little bit better at public speaking. And then I just loved it. I would, tell stories from things that I was like, I would never, ever say this. Like, I'm such a lady in my real life. I'm so shy. And then I kind of was able to get on stage and just say whatever I wanted. Like nobody can interrupt me. Like this is my time. I thought it was so awesome. So I did my first 5 minutes there. And then I started bringing it to like, the little open mics in Miami, and then started booking shows from that. There's a couple jokes from my first 5 minutes that I bring back around every once in a while.
They like lived the test of time?
Yeah.
Beautiful. What do you feel like the first 5 minutes was? I mean, obviously it wasn't that rough. Like there were keepers. But you had to you got to take your 5 minutes and let it get banged up, like kind of out on the road, like locally. But what's the process of like letting your 5 minutes like get punched in the face a bunch?
It was hard for me because I feel like I just didn't ever think anyone would expect me to be good at comedy. So my first 5 minutes, I just kind of said whatever I wanted. If people thought I was funny or not, it didn't matter because I was just like, I'm doing stand-up, like this is crazy. And it went really well. And then when I tried to add to it, I felt like all this pressure of like, okay, I've done my first 5. People maybe expect me to be good or expect something from me. Like if I go up and I try out this joke now and it doesn't land, they're all going to be like, oh, well, she tried. But it was so hard to get past my first 5 minutes and like start making new jokes.
That's like doing like the sad second album.
Yes,
everyone's like,
exactly.
where's all the jams?
Exactly. And a lot of comedians, like I feel like have that where their first special is like their breakout and it's so awesome and they have all these memorable jokes, and then they're like, it took them like whatever 5 years to come up with that first hour of comedy, and then like their second special they had to come up with in 6 months, and they're like just trying to get all the jokes together, and that's why like I feel like sometimes the first special is like even better than the second one. But now I definitely feel like I'm at a place where my joke writing has improved so much. Like I'm at 20 minutes now. So the jokes I'm writing now are very different from when I first started. When I first started, my brain would go raunchy every time. Like every punchline, I was like, how can I talk about, can I say the sex word?
You can definitely say the sex
I didn't
word.
want to joke. Yes. Like talking to a child. No, but like everything was about sex. Every punchline was about sex, drugs, whatever could be
What other
shocking.
horrible thing is she gonna say next? What?
Because I thought like that was how you write a joke. I'm like, let me just shock people. Versus now, I've definitely um, been more into just like the slice of life comedy of like job interviews, money, and the annoying stuff that happens every day.
So that's good. So like segueing into not like just punchline jokes, like real stories.
Hmm.
Like, do you feel like you gravitated toward that pretty quickly? And like, I mean, you could tell an amazing story and fill 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So do you kind of like dip and weave between like actual real life experiences and then dropping like stuff with really hard punchlines?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like any story you can make into a joke if you find it interesting at all. Basically, what I do is I kind of like take an idea of a story. Like, for example, I have a joke about a job interview that I had recently, and it was like a group interview, and I just wrote out the entire story, how it was start to finish, and then I started looking at it and thinking like, where can I add punchlines? I basically want at least a little punch after every sentence or two, or it starts getting wordy. So I would put it in like, this sounds so boring and lame, but I put it in like an Excel spreadsheet. Um, and I would be like, okay, and this is actually something I learned this technique at the villain stand-up class, and I find it really helpful still. And every sentence I put on one side, and then if I have like 4 or 5 sentences and I see no punchline on the other side, I'm like, okay, I have to add a punchline there. It's like a visualization of my set.
Dude, that's crazy. Have you ever written a set and like then accidentally did your taxes?
Yes.
Like, well, like,
I wish.
oh my God, I want you to like organize my next 50 punchlines. What the heck is a group interview?
A group interview?
Yeah, that sounds terrifying.
Oh, it's
What
the
is that?
worst thing in the world.
What would that
It's
even be?
it's literally like you are in a room with 4 different people. For me, it was 4 women who were all way older than me and had so much more experience than me, and they seemed so fun and lovely and put together and amazing. And then me, and we were all interviewing to be like to work for American Airlines. And I have none of that experience, but I was pretending. And there's one person, and we all get a chance to, respond to the interview questions, but it's like a first come first serve thing, which I didn't expect. So it's like all these women being like, yes, I did 20 years at Spirit and this and that, and then me just like, I am not getting an email back. I am ready to go home.
Dude, you got like that's like interviewing people like firing squad style.
Yes, it was terrifying.
Like, and you already knew just from like listening to other people's like interviews in real time that you're not even like the person for the job.
No, absolutely
Like you
not.
should hire like number 2. That's really super awkward. I'll go to the next set that you talk about that. Please expound on that on stage. Can I ask you, like, you have done improv,
Yes.
like you were saying. So that's a totally different scenario.
Yeah,
What are the different challenges? I mean, like you don't really know what's gonna happen, but
definitely.
you do have a group you're working off of.
Yeah,
So
so
what's that like?
stand up is very much like it's you and the audience, and you are in control of everything. Like that is your moment, your stage. Like if the audience gets out of control, you're almost like the teacher, like in a way. Like you got to get a hold of your classroom. If you can't get a hold of everything, like you're not doing your job. But improv is such a group effort that instead of putting energy outwards and being the one to control everything, you are taking everything in and listening instead. So it's like working a lot of different muscles, but a lot of the same muscles. I find improv really helpful experience, especially for crowd work, coming up with things on the spot, because it's helped me to realize that like if you're not in the moment, you're gonna miss things. And like the best jokes and punchlines and tags are when there's something going on in the audience that everybody has picked up on, and when you're able to also pick up on that and comment on it, because it's like, okay, this isn't just a set that she's doing, like we're all in this together, this is happening right now. So improv has helped so much. Also, it's just helped me learn, because I act as well, so just learning story structure, learning listening, learning how to be present in a scene, which is like half of acting is really just reacting. Like if you see like all your favorite movies, all my favorite moments are when somebody reacts to something big. Like that's when I'm crying and really moved. So I think improv is amazing.
Oh my God, for sure. That's really interesting how it relates to acting, but also like I think that's really good advice to a lot of comedians that are trying to do stand up. Like if you do improv and you're like thrown into, the X factor of what, you don't know what's going to happen next.
Hmm.
Like it makes you listen and like that can save your butt on stage with your own material, like to get out of your own material and like be at the event that you're actually at.
Exactly. And
That's awesome, Katie.
yeah, I know that you talked about this with Aaron, who is another fellow comedian in another episode of this podcast, that a lot of the comedy in Miami especially is like ambush comedy. A lot of the shows are just, you pop up in a bar or somewhere where people are talking. Some people are hanging out with their friends and they're like, oh my God, these people are doing comedy right now. Like, get me out of here. And so, like, to be able to read the room is so big. Like, I remember when I first started out, I would just like be like, okay, I have my script in my head. I'd go up and I'd tell my jokes and I'd stare at the wall and I'd be so terrified. And then now I'm able to go in and be like, okay, what does this room need? Do we need crowd work? Okay, there's like this group of people being rowdy in the back. I need to reel them in. Like, so it just depends, like, on what the room wants. Like, it's definitely helped me pick up on things.
Sometimes you wonder like what kind of comedian Miami would make.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's like you described, then that is like the best like training on the front lines. Dude, if it's
Absolutely.
ambush comedy. Miami, we special in ambush
We
comedy.
do. And I firmly believe that in Miami, just like LA, Chicago, New York, we have our own like comedy scene and almost like our own comedy style. I was doing a play in New York this past year and the year before, so which had me away for a few months. And so I really got to see the difference between Miami comedy and New York comedy. And we are so, and they're both great, but we are just so lively down here. Like we give so much energy. We have like that flavor. We're like, hey, you, da-da. Like versus I feel like a lot of the comedy I saw in New York was like very material focused. And this is not everyone, but
No.
just what I was seeing for the most part, like sitting on a stool and I'm going to tell you the things that I've written versus here. It's like you really have to work on your crowd work.
That person on the stool reading they probably just paid rent and they're really sad. So you need to be nice to New York people. Like, I paid for a room for an hour to write this down and I'm going to read all
Oh
of it to
yeah.
you.
And that's like very legitimate. Like I think a lot of comics who have that style where they're sitting and they're telling their jokes and they're clever, like this is not to say that they're not great. Like I think that's amazing. But I feel like in Miami we just like we are like jumping off the stage like every show I
That's
see.
super good. And like, as far as I think, like, crowd work is like the tip of the iceberg. Like that's really tough to do, and it's like some of the most effective comedy. But it's like watching a magic trick when you see it.
It
Like, and
is.
people in New York do like Phil Hanley, who's Canadian, but he performs a lot at the Comedy Cellar in New York. Like
Mm-hmm.
his entire set is crowd work. Have you seen him before? Will you
Yes.
check him
Yeah,
out?
yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen like clips and stuff.
there
Yeah.
is
It's freaking
amazing.
killer.
That is really hard
Yeah.
to do. What do you feel like is your key to crowd work besides just seeing people who are rowdy in the corner, and you got to get them?
Um, I feel like right now that's something I'm still trying to get better at and still trying to figure out. I mean, there's some comics in Miami who are amazing. Ellie, Aldi, who just like they can do a whole 40 minutes of crowd work and I'll be entertained the whole time. What I've learned is I've just been trying to not like I used to do the thing where I'd just be like what's your job, how long have you guys been together, and now I try to kind of read the room if there's something very obvious like somebody's wearing something that's obvious, or if there's a group of people who maybe it's like, okay, do they like know each other well, this is like a like I could tell they're kind of maybe on a first date, like just reading the room and seeing like what it is that will spark a reaction and what's like just interesting. Like, what do I want to know about the people in the room?
That's
Like, forget
super
what the
good.
audience wants to know. So like just starting out, I was like, I know this is like something that I want to do, and then I feel like just writing it out and like having like a piece of paper, because I'm very from like acting world, so like I like to have my scripts, and then like I record a lot with another comedian, Daniela Delfino, who's like very very amazing and talented. And I would like come to her with a script and be like, okay, I have this idea where like this person says this, and then this other character says that, and then this character says this, and she'd be like, okay.
Is it in 4 lines? Like, does she need like a ruler? Was it like a spreadsheet?
Right, like it's an
Or
Excel sheet with and I'm like, girl, and you have to come in at 0.25 seconds. But and she'd be like, okay, let's try this, but I'm just we're just gonna say whatever and like see what works. And then we try it out, and from what we had on the page, like a totally different, like none of this would work, but the idea's still there, and it'd be a totally different sketch by the time we finish filming it. So
which is such a good surprise.
yeah, it is. And like that's the thing about collaboration is like I feel like a lot of people see entertainment as really, really competitive, which it is, but I think if you surround yourself with people you could collaborate with, that makes it way easier and way funner.
For sure.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, so you are an actress. Is there anything that you've done like recently that you are kind of dig, or characters you got to play that was a little bit different than what you're used to doing? And I do have to ask you about Miami Barbie. Like we're going to get back there, but go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So something I'm really excited about is oh gosh, am I allowed to say? I'm just gonna say
Do
it
you want to skip
generally.
it? What? We
A
can skip
play
it.
that I did a couple years ago, working on a pilot for that this summer. So it's been like 2 years that I've had this character in the back of my head and this role, and it's like the character is very much an influencer, and she's like super famous on like TikTok and social media. So I was able to get like a lot of inspiration from just my daily scrolling. And she has like a lot of also trauma, and she has like a parent who passed away, and she's dealing with a lot. So like I'm really really excited to get back into that character and to film that, especially after like it's been 2 years since I did the play. So I feel like I've grown so much as an actor since then, that the fact that I even get to revisit a character and even improve on things that I did in the play, I'm really really excited about.
It's like rare that you get to develop a character on stage and then let it go and then come back to it. Like that
Yeah.
is nuts.
Yeah.
Um, Also, just as far as like creating characters that are like influencers, it's pretty strange to like have a person who's like might be perceived as shallow and then also like create depth for that character too. So you have to make them like 3-dimensional, and then also you get to like take out all of your angst towards influencers, and then also like kind of like sensitively like embrace them too. Like you get to like hit something from all sides when you're developing a character. Did you find that happen with this one?
Yeah, definitely. And it just made me have like a lot of love. Like I feel like this is going to sound so actory, but when you're like creating a character, you can't really judge them. They are who they are. And like if we all treated ourselves that way, like how amazing would that be? But so that's kind of how I felt about her. She's written by this playwright and amazing actor too, named Rob Asaro, who I just have done a couple shows with him. And when you're able to work with a script that fleshes out a character for you, and all you have to do is do it, and you have the flexibility to add yourself into it, because I put a lot of myself into that character, to the point where it's like, oh, I forgot that I was just saying that like how I would say it, because I relate to her so much.
All right, well, stop being nicer to your characters than you are to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're probably a better person than they are.
Oh,
But
definitely not. But
um, I hate to bring this up, but I also hate that it's still like relevant. As a woman in comedy in Miami, is there anything that like is a particular thing to you that you have to like, I don't know, do double duty on or work harder, or is there any kind of like judgment? And I do have to say, and I think this is hilarious, but your punchlines, like one of your strategies is your punchlines are always dirtier than the setup, and you don't really expect it. So I don't know if you use like possibly people thinking that you're kind of innocent when you walk on stage, like to your advantage.
I do. I definitely do. Um, so just being a woman in comedy, there's not there's always gonna be less of us. So I found that connecting with other women in comedy has been really helpful. At Villain Theater, they do a woman in comedy like festival every Women's Month, every March, and that was a great opportunity to meet other women. And then honestly, Miami, of course, there's always going to be some people who don't respect you, but for the most part, all the comedians are extremely respectful. They will walk me to my car, make sure I'm safe. There was a comedian who came from out of town to a show recently, and you know how you're standing out with everyone, everyone's talking, hanging out like outside of the venue, and this guy like goes up to me, he's like, "Oh, what? You're a comic too?" I'm like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Oh, okay, well, whatever, like, is she good?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, she's good, leave her alone, she's good, she's good." And I was like, I'm so protected right now. Everyone's so
Yeah, comedians are super known for being supportive of each other.
You know what, I found that sometimes they are. The grass is green where you water it.
Good.
I mean, you know, sometimes they're not, but I'm not gonna get into that.
For sure. Can I ask you, just to wrap up? I hate to
Yeah.
have to roll this out, but I want to know, like, any particular like venues or residencies you guys do where we could possibly see you. And I was also wondering if you knew what a Kill Tony was and if you know how to do that.
A Kill Tony?
Yeah, do you know what that is?
Is it 1 minute or
Yeah,
less? Oh,
it's 1 minute.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for like upcoming comedians doing their a Kill Tony? 1 minute, go. Basically, for anybody who doesn't know, you have 60 seconds to show your material and prove what you can do, or else you're out.
Yeah.
Right?
Nerve-wracking. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have 1 minute. I would say do your quickest jokes that you can. Like, I don't know if I would do like a huge story that didn't have a punchline till 2 sentences in. I would
Sure.
start out with a setup punch. Talk about yourself. Make it personal. Don't apologize for anything you're saying, which happens a lot. Don't add any extra words because comedy is concise. That's one of the first things I learned. So yeah.
Brevity is a solo wit. Any venues that stand out to you besides Villain, which seems really interesting, and I encourage everybody to look up Villain Theater. But
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Miami's a great venue. There's so many in South Florida. There's Miami Comedy has a bunch of shows. Metro Dade Comedy has a bunch of shows. I just did a show recently at a place called La Sala that I believe they're having shows often, and Metro Dade Comedy puts those on, and it was an awesome room, like right off of Bird Road. It's all set up. It was beautiful, and Dade County Comedy also has a bunch of shows that go on.
yeah, see, we got to tell the Comedy Cellar here in Miami, we're holding it down. That was like
Oh, we are.
50 venues where you can possibly come see Katie Lyons, also known as to only her grandmother, Katen
Lyons.
Lily Lyons. I'm going to work on that. I hope to see you out. I hope everybody comes out to see you. I'd love to see you break into some crowd work in between your sets. So do that just for me. That's a request. It's been awesome
Definitely.
hanging with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on Beach Channel Live, talking about arts and culture in Miami. I'm Jason Kesser. We'll see you next time. Peace.